Dragon Riders, Kaze no Kaeru, by Night Dragon Zero. Hazuki's perspective. Wow, the lights here are pretty different from the ones I knew back in Fuchsia City, I told Night Slice as we walked. We'd recalled all the Pokemon to avoid accidentally losing them in the crowd. I admit, this is the first time I've actually seen this sort of thing, he replied. Living most of my life in a lab in an isolated mountain does have its disadvantages. The streets we were walking was away from the central ones, and thus relatively quiet. That was until we heard the screams. Here! Night Slice led me around the corner. The street-level door of one of the houses had been thrown open, and a man was standing in the doorway, pointing a gun into it. He wasn't in any Team Rocket uniform, and was probably your average thug, but I knew Night Slice wouldn't stand for it. Hey, you! He growled, stepping up towards the robber. Stay back! The thug yelled, aiming the gun at Night Slice. From inside the house came the panicked cries of the residents. There was apparently a party going on, and it had been so terribly interrupted. Holding poor, frightened partygoers at gunpoint on Christmas Eve. How low can you scumbags possibly go? He continued. I'm warning you, the thug yelled. I'm not afraid to use this. Oh, really? Is that why you're trembling? Night Slice's pace didn't change one bit. I backed around the corner to make sure I was out of the way, but continued to watch the showdown. I saw the man's hand move as he pulled the trigger. Time seemed to slow down as Night Slice dropped into a forward roll. The bullet passed inches above his back. He sprang up again and all at once drew his sword and sliced the gun in half. That was when time sped up again. The thug cried out in surprise, but reached for his belt and drew his knife. He attacked with a forward stab. Night Slice spun round the man's knife side and grabbed the thug's right hand with his own, pulling sideways. The motion forced the man to spin around and face Night Slice, who brought his palm up to his opponent's face, slamming him into the ground. It was an Aikido technique for knife disarming, but Night Slice had also let go of his sword in the process. Although he lost his knife, the thug quickly sprang up and tried to run. Night Slice was faster, grabbing his arm, spinning him round, and slamming him cheek first into the wall. Is everyone all right? I asked, running to the house. The people there were gathered around a middle-aged woman on her knees, sobbing miserably. I thought he was an old classmate, she sniffed between her tears. He knew the name of my college, my class, some of my other classmates, and I thought I'd forgotten him. I wanted to be a good host that I saw Night Slice go red with rage. He spun to the thug and faced him. Dirtbag, you're very good at conning kind-hearted ladies, aren't you? He roared. Fuck you! That's how I do things! Deal with it! You dare to even speak?! Night Slice drove his fist into the thug's face. Again and again. He followed up by kneeling and kicking as well. Heartless monster! You have no honor whatsoever! Scum like you are what give the human race a bad name! The man was bleeding at the mouth, nose, and from several wounds, but Night Slice didn't stop. He started banging the man's head into the wall. He was fully intent on beating the person to death. Please stop, the woman begged. Stop, they've already called the police. Please, stop. Night Slice stared the half-conscious thug in the eye. Even after this, your victim shows you mercy. You would have gotten none from me. He slammed the thug into the wall, knocking him unconscious. Yorukiro-san, I muttered. Night Slice was facing away from everyone, clenching his fists in anger. Are you all right, madam? He asked. Yes, thanks to you, the woman replied. But you could have gotten yourself killed. Con men like to prey on the kind-hearted and sadly sometimes gullible, he said fiercely. They're always out there. It's a shame how people never think it can happen until it happens. You should be more careful in the future. As he began to walk off, I noticed blood dripping from his right hand. The knife must have cut him when he brought the robber down. Your hand! The woman gasped. It's bleeding! I'm okay, he insisted. No. After what you've done for me, this is the very least I can do to repay you, she said, grasping his arm. Come inside. Several other people stood around the thief to watch him, while one ran and got a first aid kit and some bandages. I just hate assholes like that, he said to me. His expression conveyed the rest. There was a lot of talk when the police arrived, but he soon found himself outside, shaking Officer Jenny's hand. The world could use more people like you, she smiled, and so could the police. It was just the right thing to do, Night Slice replied. As the police left, we prepared to depart as well. However, the woman stopped us again. Oh, I forgot to say, my name is Jenna. I'm the manager of the Four Seasons Hotel in this town, and... The Four Seasons? I gasped. You mean like that 5-star hotel in the center of town? Yes, and I'd absolutely must insist on you staying the night there. Every expense on my personal account. Please, after what you've done for me. I guess I'm obliged to accept then, Night Slice replied, smiling at me, and I felt that he accepted it on my behalf. You have a strong sense of justice, son, Jenna spoke. Those are the same qualities I saw in my own son, who's away on his journey right now. Your son is very lucky to have a mother like you, I thought, just like my parents. Ogwell's perspective. Firestorm seemed to be enjoying his chat with Lisa, so I excused myself and left the restaurant with Serac. The streets were a little less crowded now, with people mostly at home celebrating. I walked down the street, lost in thought. They'll have to know the truth soon, I told Serac. I can't keep hiding it from them. It's already pushing the limits of what I can do. You'll work it out, she assured. I trusted that you could. That's why I came along all this time. But Please, just bear with me a little longer, I said. Our part will be over soon, and then you'll be free to do as you wish. It's not that, just... I don't know what I'll do without you. We've been through this for so long. You'll have to find your own path, like I had to believe in mine. As we walked, I noticed a suspicious figure standing across the road. He was plainclothed with a jacket on, but I sensed it was a Silph agent. He was probably armed, too, and was slowly approaching our position. I pretended to be looking at a display in a nearby shop's window as he came up to me. Hey, it's you, isn't it? He asked rudely. No, I'm not the one, I said, probing his mind. No, you're not the one, he repeated. You're in the wrong location. The people you're looking for aren't here. I'm in the wrong location. The people I'm looking for aren't here. And you're going to report back to base now. And I'm going to report back to base now. In fact, you also want to go home and rethink your whole life. I'm also going to go home and rethink my whole life, the man said before hurrying off. The Jedi mind trick never fails on the weak-minded, I commented, watching him go. You do have a sense of humor after all, Serac laughed. I suppose you'll pick up some things from being around a human society, I nodded, but that may not be for much longer. I stared at my reflection in the window, my actual reflection. Others have described me as a white and silver-feathered bird with blue ridges lining his back and a blue mask over his eyes. The time approaches. Sorge's perspective. Scantrix's idea of getting free hamburgers was to wait at one of the drive-through fast food outlets and order through the speaker when there were no cars around. Then he'd wait below the window ledge of the counter until he was sure no one was looking, then grab the bag and fly off. Rather dishonorable, isn't it? I asked as he landed next to me on the rooftop. Just once in a while for fun, he grinned. Besides, we deserve a break from searching through trash bins for leftovers, or going out and hunting. Well, I suppose. The smell of the freshly cooked cheeseburgers was just too tempting. Since neither of us had the proper hands for unwrapping the burgers, we basically dug in and gulped down the wrappings and all. Having had my fill, I looked up towards the huge building across the street from our location. It was apparently a hotel, and through the windows I could see the guests going about all sorts of things, parties and movies mostly. I just happened to be looking in the general direction when something caught my eye. It was in the room at practically the same level as me. The curtain was partially drawn, but I could see a Jolteon, a Golduck, an Ivysaur, and a Lapras in the room, munching away at something. The street wasn't very wide, and I could see further into the room, but the ledge on my roof would make it difficult for the occupants to see me. Squinting, I could see a belt hung on the window. I was thinking that it looked a lot like the one I used to have when I saw one of the Pokeballs clipped to it. The one with the Marsh Badge design on it. Riptide? I wondered. Were the Ivysaur and Jolteon my old comrades too? I knew that Sabrina didn't go round giving out those specially designed Pokeballs, and the Pokemon combination seemed too coincidental. I knew Riptide wouldn't willingly go along with any stranger, but he was talking and laughing with the others. Could Jade be here too? My heart raced as I scanned around the room. I realized there was a connecting door that led to an adjoining room and checked that one. 2 people were seated at the dinner table there, a boy and a girl, but the boy definitely wasn't Jade. However, I felt something odd about him. He looked like a Japanese about 16 years old. He was wearing a brown vest and a blue jeans. He had black-colored hair of ear length, which was neatly combed back. There seemed to be nothing unusual until he turned to look out the window. That was when I saw his eyes. They were blue, fierce, and exactly like a Scyther's. Night Slice! I didn't know how, but I knew it. I just felt it. Both his eyes and the 3 Pokemon in the room. I watched more closely now and saw him stand up and show off some fancy kicking and dodging maneuvers. And the thing was, I recognized every single one of those techniques we practiced together. I even saw one of the small mistakes he used to make, like not pulling up his rear leg to match the pace of the rest of his body. Night Slice! It is you! There was no longer any doubt in my mind. I turned into a Scyther, so was this why he turned into a human? Had we switched places somehow? I was wondering what I should do to approach him when he sat down and started talking to the girl again. They were eating, drinking, and distinctively moving closer to each other. Night Slice, is this how you've been all this time? While my life was a living hell, you were... Then Night Slice kissed her. Night Slice's perspective. I just don't know what came over me, I staggered, backing away. We'd simply been eating and talking about some of our past experiences. Somehow we'd gotten to the point where I'd said I'd really cared about her and promised to look after her no matter what. I just don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have drunk sake out of that bottle. No, it's perfectly alright. Hazuki blushed slightly. I've just never been kissed by someone like you before. It's my first time, but it was quite nice. Does this make humans feel nice? I asked, still slightly shocked. Well, my mom used to say that it's a natural thing that would happen, Hazuki said softly. I see, I nodded shakily. Then I took a few steps closer. Then, may I? Our lips touched again. Sorge's perspective. At that moment, something must have snapped inside of me. Perhaps it was jealousy, anger, frustration, or something else. My whole body was trembling, but I couldn't find the strength to scream out loud. You! I shook my head, desperately forcing it away. He was my half-brother, after all, not my boyfriend. He seemed so happy now, far away from his previous problems, something I wished he could have had for a long time. Now that he did, why should I be so jealous? Sorja, you alright? Scantrix asked. Yeah, no problem. I started, remembering that he'd been there the whole time. You're sure? He asked with concern. Yes, really. Anyway, we should get moving. Don't think you want to spend the night in the city, do you? Yeah, we'd better find a safe spot in the forest outside, he nodded, spreading his wings and flying off. I hesitated only for a moment longer to look back. Silently, I bade Night Slice, my half-brother, farewell, and good luck with his new life. I had my own to deal with now.